just like, you know what, you're a real swell dude. Just go ahead and have this mansion and manage my billions. That's essentially the relationship that Leslie Wexner, never trust a man named Leslie. That's the relationship that Wexner had with Epstein, right? So, and we know who Epstein was. That's our point of contact here in this current narrative, and that's what we're going to use to expand and basically break the entire Matrix control grid. Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we are continuing a little bit more in the same line that we started this morning, actually just going off the lead that a commenter left down below in a comment. We've had some good comments so far. It's always the small little good community here at our channel. I don't necessarily appreciate the name the Jew aspect, but I had never heard of Unit 8200 Talpiot program here by Axeman. Wes, I will get to you. You left a good link too, and we'll get to that. I'll get to you, man. But for now, I am embarrassed to say that I did not know what this was, and so I looked it up. I did a little due diligence. I found that there's actually some information that I've overlooked over these few years. So I figured the best way to come to catharsis about that ignorance is to share it with all you of what I found. So let's check it out. What is Talpiot program and Unit 8200? Right, and here's basically one of the first documents I found. Talpiot and Unit 8200, the Global Cyber Agenda for Kill Switch Domination by Jeremy Roth-Koschel. At least these slides were put together by him. Alright, so Talpiot, Unit 8200, and the Ascent of Cyber. Talpiot is the Special Forces Engineer Training for Management of Strategic Tech Domination. And to be in the Talpiot program, you need 3 years in physics, math, or comp sci, while field training across all IDF branches, Israeli Defense Forces, then 6 years in IDF. Unit 8200 is Israeli NSA and engineering force/source for Israeli cyber power worldwide. Dagon's Mossad, Humint, plus ZV Farkash's Amon 8200 Sigint equals Hugint Cohen. I'm not entirely sure what all those references mean just yet. References Rise and Kill First, The Secret History of Israel's Targeted Assassinations by Ronan Bergman on page 597. Talpiot Unit 8200, Power as a Result of Long-Term Israeli Technical Intelligence. Prime Minister Netanyahu, Now and Then. Here's a quote from Benjamin Netanyahu on March 11th, 2018, in an interview with Mark Levin on Fox News. Quote, "We not only do it for us, we share it with dozens of countries. We've prevented dozens of terrorist attacks, major terrorist attacks. So when you take security interest and intelligence, that countries have to protect themselves against terrorism, and that's pretty much all countries, and you take the needs for technological, the innovation that is driving the world right now, both of them are present in Israel, and so everybody wants them. And that gives me the third thing, which is this massive flourishing of Israel's diplomatic relations with just about every country in the world. Not all. We're not big on North Korea, not too big on Iran, but just about everyone else. And so this is the triangle. It's economic power, security power, gives you diplomatic power. That will take a few years to transit itself into the votes of the archaic body called a General Assembly of the United Nations, or some of the other bodies. It'll take a while until they get the news, but it's happening all over the world. So Israel has never been stronger militarily, economically, diplomatically, and it's a very deliberate policy, and it actually begins with economics." And here's another quote by Shoshana Solomon in Times of Israel. This was May 30th of last year in 2018, from How Quantum Physics Can Make Israel More Secure. Quote, "I will soon declare the technological scientific program to strengthen Israel's security," Netanyahu told science ministers and delegations from 25 countries at a convention in Jerusalem. "Among other things, the revolutionary program will advance Israel in quantum technology. That field is vital for Israel's intelligence." End quote. 1979. Harbingers of 9/11 and Global War on Terror, Agents and Talpiot. Jerusalem Conference on International Terrorism, organized by Netanyahu. This was a quote by father of Israeli intelligence Isser Haral foretells to journalist Michael Evans, quote, "My last question was, would terrorism ever come to America? You have the power to fight it," he said, "but not the will. They have the will, but not the power. All of that will change in time. Yes, I fear it will come to New York and your tallest building, which is a symbol of your fertility." Shaul Eisenberg, Mossad, Beit Asia, Israel Corp, flies Israeli military covertly to China. Yosef Bodansky arrived in USA, helps create technology transfer center. The Talpiot program begins. I'm going to have to follow a lot more of these. I'm just kind of reading the slides to you guys, just so you can follow your own, lines of research from here. But I was aware of this general field of information and a lot of the individual points, but there's a lot here that I haven't been aware of. And I find this to be actually a pretty good, brief on this whole program. So intelligence, City of London Rothschilds to Aman Lakam. So, and basically he's naming here all the different aspects of Israeli infiltration in different regions of the world. We have the City of London, we have the US, UK, Eurasia, and Palestine. We have the UK, the US, the ADL, JINSA, and the Mr. X Committee, and the Mega Group. And so this is where we're going to take a pause from these slides, because I had right down here, you'll look at Mega Group. Rahm Emanuel, who was Obama's, I believe, chief of staff. He was high up in the Obama administration, and I think now he's like mayor of Chicago. Great places all around. Leon Firth, Richard Clark, etc. to Bronfmans, Wexner, Steinhardt, etc. And now this is very interesting given the topical aspects of here in August 2019. The Bronfmans and Wexner. Okay, as you probably remember this name from the Epstein thing, Wexner is the guy who basically made Jeffrey Epstein. He basically gave Jeffrey Epstein his $77 million mansion in New York City. I mean, imagine the biggest thing that anybody's ever given you in your life apart from your parents. And basically think of that on the order of $77 million. Just like, you know what, you're a real swell dude. Just go ahead and have this mansion and manage my billions. That's essentially the relationship that Leslie Wexner, never trust a man named Leslie. That's the relationship that Wexner had with Epstein, right? So, and we know who Epstein was. That's our point of contact here in this current narrative, and that's what we're going to use to expand and basically break the entire matrix control grid. And the Bronfmans, of course, from the NXIVM case, right? We had the NXIVM case where the Bronfman daughters, right? I forget their first names. It doesn't matter. But the Bronfman sisters were key aspects of NXIVM, very tied into Hillary Clinton's campaign. Anthony Weiner, right? This whole clique, all these, the Podestas. And again, now the NXIVM has come out as basically a giant sex trafficking ring. Not necessarily focused on children, more just on like enslaving women psychologically. But when you really get into the darker aspects of it, you find that these women don't enter these structures when they're older and wiser. They enter when they're young and malleable and vulnerable to the will of, evil old saggy men. And, not to say that there's not women involved with this, but the main players usually fit a certain archetype. And they're not thin, lean, spiritual folks. They're basically big old saggy folks. And, they're clearly not aligned with the creative force of this universe. They're clearly, just parasites. You can even tell that just by looking at them. That's not anything prejudiced against any group. That's just saying you look at a guy like Harvey Weinstein and you see just a degenerate person. There's no way that you look at Harvey Weinstein and think, wow, he looks like a real strong, ethical stand-up dude. Like, and if you do, your eyes are broken and you should get them replaced. Or your brain. One of the two. So we're going to take a break here. The Mega Group. Okay, what is the Mega Group? And in explaining that, first we're going to go to the only reference in the mainstream media that has ever occurred about the Mega Group, which is a Wall Street Journal article by staff reporter Lisa Miller of the Wall Street Journal. This was back in May 4th, 1998, right? So different times. Before 9/11, different world altogether compared to 2019, right? 20 years ago, 21 years ago. So here we go. And before I'm going to read this article, I just want you to do a mental exercise. I want you, every time I say the word Jewish, I want you to think just replace that word with white. And imagine how many heads would literally explode if this article was written exactly as it is, except the word Jewish was replaced with white. Just a little mental exercise as we proceed. Title of the article is Titans of Industry Join Forces to Work for Jewish Philanthropy. When movie mogul Steven Spielberg, Seagram chairman Edgar Bronfman Sr., and former hedge fund manager Michael Steinhardt met at Mr. Steinhardt's Manhattan apartment last month, the main topic was neither films nor high finance, but considerably more complex than either: being Jewish. The three men, among others, were convened for a meeting of the Study Group, also known informally as the Mega Group, a loosely organized club of 20 of the nation's wealthiest and most influential Jewish businessmen. Formed 7 years ago by Leslie Wexner, chairman of Limited Inc., and Charles Bronfman, Edgar's brother and Seagram co-chairman, the group meets twice a year for 2 days of seminars on topics related to philanthropy and Jewishness. At the April meeting, Mr. Spielberg spoke about his personal religious journey, and then the group discussed Jewish summer camps. Big challenges. The study group represents some of the nation's most successful executives trying to apply their skills to the world of Jewish philanthropy as it wrestles with big challenges. As the Holocaust recedes in time, if not memory, and Israel becomes a more ambiguous symbol, American Jews are losing some major reasons to identify themselves as Jews. Today, some estimates put the intermarriage rate at nearly 50%. And as Jewish identification declines, so does giving. At the United Jewish Appeals UGA Federation, New York, donations have been flat this decade, hovering around $250 million a year, in spite of the booming economy and increasing wealth of the donor pool. The study group's members want to take a more entrepreneurial and strategic approach to giving, learning from one another, contributing to one another's causes, launching projects together. Quote, "You meet people who are of like mind," says Charles Schusterman, chairman of Samson Investment Co. of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a study group member. "It gives us an opportunity to develop partnerships." There are similar groups in Judaism as well as other faiths, but few are from the business world's highest ranks, and few keep such a low profile. The study group's meetings are private, and it doesn't publicly release its membership list. Among the members, Harvey Bud Meyerhoff, a retired Baltimore area real estate developer; Leonard Abramson, founder of U.S. Healthcare Inc., Lester Crown, a Chicago billionaire and part owner of the Chicago Bulls; Lawrence Tisch, chairman of Lowe's Corp., Max Fisher, Detroit financier, and bagel tycoon Marvin Lender. New members must be recommended by existing members of the group. Mr. Spielberg was a guest at the April meeting, but members say he is considering joining. Several members declined to discuss the group, and others didn't return phone calls. "We don't want to be seen as the Sanhedrin," says Charles Bronfman, referring to the highest court of the ancient Jews to explain the group's aversion to publicity. "We don't want to be looked at crooked." Furthermore, he says the group doesn't want to open the door to all kinds of solicitations. Charles Bronfman worried that people will say, "All these hotshots sitting there, let's go schnorr them." I don't know what schnorr is, but I could probably imagine. No threat. Another reason advanced by members for the study group's low profile: it doesn't want to look as if it is rebelling against or distancing itself from the UJA Federation system, for decades the backbone of American Jewish philanthropy. "From the beginning, we didn't want to be seen as a threat to anybody," Charles Bronfman says, and that still pertains. Indeed, the idea for the study group originally came from a UJA executive, and the group requires that members contribute it to their local UJA. In working to solve the current crisis, the group is conscious of image. "We want to make it cool to be Jewish," says Edgar Bronfman, whose company's keen sense of image has made it one of the world's most successful marketers. The study group moved from discussion to action about 4 years ago, when Hillel, the Jewish organization on college campuses, needed refinancing. A small group of members agreed to make $1.3 million combined annual donation over 5 years. Last year, 6 study group members put up $1.5 million each to help Mr. Steinhardt launch the $18 million Partnership for Jewish Education, a foundation that makes matching grants to Jewish day schools. Currently, Charles Bronfman and Mr. Steinhardt are working on the nascent Birthright Project, which will help send any young Jew born on this planet to Israel who wants to go, Mr. Steinhardt says. Such efforts sometimes fall short of expectations. 3 years ago, the Bronfman Foundation started the Bronfman Curriculum Initiative to help private high schools teach Jewish ethics and philosophy. The Taft School, an elite boarding school in Connecticut, taught a course from the Bronfman Initiative last year, but there wasn't a lot of response, says school chaplain Michael Spencer. This year, Taft isn't offering the course, but Mr. Spencer says he hopes to incorporate some components of the course into general interest subjects such as philosophy and ethics. Pricey dues. Though mostly informal, such study group meetings have a certain protocol. Each meeting begins with a dinner and a speaker at someone's house or a hotel on a Sunday night, then continues the next day with seminars from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Each member contributes $30,000 a year to pay for research speakers and incidentals. Many members' wives attended the latest meeting thanks to the efforts of Andrea Bronfman, Charles' wife. My wife said, "You want to talk about Jewish community? Where the heck are the women?" Charles Bronfman says. Many study group members have their own foundations that further the cause of Jewish identity. Mr. Schusterman's foundation will pay a third of the way for any Jewish person in Tulsa under the age of 25 to go to Israel or a Jewish summer camp. Mr. Steinhardt has started several projects to draw assimilated young adults to Judaism. Among them is the Jewish Campus Service Corps, a kind of Peace Corps in which recent college graduates spend no less than 1 year on a college campus. The goal is to create a Jewish life there with everything from leaflets and speakers to Jewish film series and kosher sushi rolling parties. Sushi. And that's the end of the article by Lisa Miller. And, on the surface, as it's described, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a group of people who are rich and, coordinating their money to have the greatest impact for their own in-group, their own in-social group. I mean, as this is depicted on the surface, there's nothing wrong here. I just think it's funny to consider that from a white perspective, and of course, white isn't really an, all-encompassing identity, but then again, neither is being Jewish. I mean, there's the Ashkenazim, there's the Sephardim, right? And, we've done also, videos about how the original Jews, are likely more associated with the Celts than the Ashkenazim, who are from Eastern Europe. But we'll do more videos about that. Again, it's not about judgment, it's just about history. It's just about knowing the truth. If you're afraid of the truth, it's because you're a liar. All right, it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or anything, you're an atheist. You either respect the truth because you're honest, or you don't respect the truth because you're a liar. So that's how I'm breaking this down. If you have a problem with that, I encourage you to let me know in the comments below. But, I have Jewish people in my family who I love till the end of the earth, right? And this is not about one group or the other, but I think it's just interesting to look at an article like this and consider the identity politics that are at work now in 2019, 21 years later after this was written, and how insane everyone is about just this, just big straw man, boogeyman of white, racism and all the rest of it. Anyway,